Hey gang, welcome to the first probably 3 parts on our religions of MENA, Middle East and North Africa. The main 3 religions that we are going to be looking at here are referred to as Abrahamic religions, and we'll see why here in a little bit when we dive into Judaism. But the 3 religions we're going to be looking at are Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And what you're going to probably come to find out is you're probably familiar with some, you probably think you know a little bit about others, and then you probably think you know nothing about a whole lot of them. And ultimately, I think what we're going to come to find out here is that all 3 of these religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they all originated within the same region of the world. They've all spread around the world. They've all had a pretty large global impact on the world. And they all 3 actually share a good deal in common with one another, even if we might not think so right out of the gate. So before we dive into the first of the 3, which will be Judaism, let's take a look at this map here. And as you look at this map, a map of major world religions, and you'll see that most of it's dominated by purple, and that shows kind of where Christianity is the most prominent religion around the world. And then you probably the next largest color you see is green, and that's going to be Islam. And then it might be kind of hard to see, but right smack in the middle of all that is that bluish color, and that's Judaism. And those are going to be the big 3 again that we're going to look at, all originating within this region. And then of course we've already taken a look at Hinduism, most prominent in India, and Buddhism, most prominent in Southeast Asia. And so this is going to round out our big 5. And then if we look at it by the numbers, we see that Christianity is the largest of the main religions in the world, with roughly 2.3 billion people around the world identifying as Christian, followed by Islam at 1.8 billion. The followers of Islam, by the way, are referred to as Muslim. So the religion itself is Islam and the followers are Muslim. A little bit different than, say, Christianity, where the name of the religion is Christianity and the followers are referred to as Christian. And then we also have Judaism, whose followers are referred to as Jews, and they make up a very small fraction of, in terms of active participants of religions around the world, but it's a pretty influential religion in the region, and then the connections that the religion has with Christianity and Islam. And so we're going to take a moment here and watch this video clip, and it's going to bring in these big 5 and just kind of give us kind of a timeline and show us the spread of each of these 5 religions. So let's just take a moment, watch this clip, and as you do, just kind of note when the religions began and where they spread to. All right, here we go. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's dive into our first of the 5 religions, and that is going to be Judaism. So here we go. Let's dive right in. First, starting with the origins. It's murky. We don't have, like an official start date of the Jewish faith, but we can estimate that the Jewish faith began somewhere around the year 2000 BCE, before the Common Era. So if we're in the year 2021 Common Era, and we were to go back to 2000 BCE, before the Common Era, we're looking at roughly 4,000 years ago. So that's a long, long time ago, but roughly 4,000 years ago is when this religion originated. And its roots, its origins can be traced back to a fellow named Abraham. Abraham is going to be a figure not just in Judaism, but we're going to be aware of his existence and its importance and influence in Christianity and Islam as well. And it originated roughly around what we would consider Israel today. Within the Middle East, Abraham was not born in the Middle East. He was born somewhere in probably around present-day Iraq, in the city of Ur. But it began, we'll say, Israel for our intents and purposes. And then where it spread globally, particularly throughout the United States, Eastern Europe, Russia, and then, of course, Israel today as well. How it was spread, it was mostly spread early on through oral tradition, passing down through families. And in fact, part of that has to do with Abraham. Jewish faith tradition holds that God made himself known to Abraham, and God told Abraham that his descendants would be recognized, his descendants would be chosen, and that there would be a special relationship. And so you can trace that relationship from Abraham, 1,000 years later to Moses, and it just kind of was spread throughout the family line. Today, it is most influential in Israel. Israel is a nation that was founded by Jewish people for Jewish people. We'll learn more about that later in roughly the 1940s, but it predates, modern day Israel as well. And it's most influential in Israel today, but it's also highly influential, like I said, in Eastern Europe and the United States. And there are roughly 15 million followers worldwide. So again, although in terms of number of followers, it doesn't have a large following, it is still one of our 5 big religions that we are looking at throughout this year. Let's get on to some of the beliefs and practices. This is where you'll probably, if you're familiar with Christianity, notice a lot of similarities. The holy book that the Jewish people use is known as the Hebrew Bible. You might also hear about the Torah, which refers to the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible. This is the same as the Old Testament. The Hebrew Bible is the exact same as the Old Testament of the Christian Bible. There's a couple little differences in terms of how the books are laid out, in terms of the 39, I believe, books of the Old Testament in their order. But the first 5 books, of the Hebrew Bible, the Torah, the Old Testament, first 5 books of the Old Testament of the Christian Bible, that is all one and the same. And so you're going to notice a lot of similarities there. One of the things that's notable or central to the beliefs of Judaism is that it is a monotheistic religion. Mono meaning one God. This was wildly different from the religions at the time, thousands of years ago. You remember Hinduism, for example, a polytheistic religion. And there are numerous other ancient religions that would have been polytheistic as well. But this was a monotheistic religion, which was relatively a new concept at the time. And part of that belief in the monotheistic religion is this idea that God created the world and created the entire universe. And again, this was something new that was introduced at the time. Some other key concepts to the faith are the 10 Commandments. Again, if you are familiar with the Christian faith tradition, we're talking roughly the same 10 Commandments there. And the first of those 10 Commandments is, you shall have no other gods beside me. And so that's true of Judaism. That's going to be true of Christianity. And Islam has a very central belief as well. And then also along with Judaism, some other kind of key things, it really stresses ethical behavior, social justice, caring for others, this idea that your time on earth is finite, it's limited, and because of that, it is important to care for others, to look out for one another, and to practice themes of social justice. Another key belief is that the Jewish faith tradition holds that the Jewish people have a covenant or a special bond with God, that they are the chosen people. And this idea that one day God will return to earth. The Jewish faith tradition holds that God has not yet been on earth. That's notably different from the Christian faith tradition. And it holds that, there is this chosen people, and that there will be a chosen nation for the Jewish people. And then another key concept with Judaism is that this gets kind of murky. I'm not an expert. I myself, I'm not Jewish, and so I'm not an expert on this. But in terms of an afterlife, this idea of a heaven and a hell, Jewish scholars throughout history have gone back and forth on this. And generally speaking, I think it's safe to say that Jewish faith tradition holds that there isn't necessarily a concept of hell in the afterlife like you might think of or you might be familiar with yourself. And this idea, the closest, from what I understand, the closest feeling or equivalent of hell is this idea of a sense of great shame. And so you would not have like an eternal, existence in hell in the afterlife, but you would have a finite period of just great shame and great sorrow for any sins or transgressions or misdeeds that you had committed. And then eventually you would be purified. And then even then, though, this existence of heaven in the Jewish faith tradition, it's kind of a little bit murky. There is no real clear line of thought or no clear explanation that I've been able to find about the existence of heaven and hell in the Jewish faith tradition. Some other things, their main place of worship is in a synagogue. So Muslims, they would worship in a mosque. Christians would worship in a church. And Jews would worship in a synagogue. The religious leader is a rabbi. And so that would be the equivalent of a Islamic imam or a Christian pastor or minister or priest. And so the Jewish religious leader would be a rabbi. And then their day of worship, they will worship, kind of had one day set aside each week. It is referred to as the Sabbath or Shabbat, the Hebrew word for Shabbat, and it goes from roughly Friday night at sundown to Saturday night at sundown. So a 24 to 25 hour period, roughly going from Friday night to Saturday. And it should be a day of rest, and really truly a day of rest. So much so that no physical labor, even really no mental labor, should be done on these days. And so, folks of the Jewish faith tradition who are going to fully practice this, it will truly be a day of rest. So you're not doing chores around the house. You might not do your schoolwork around the house on Saturday or on the Sabbath, because it's meant to be truly a day of rest, a day of reflection, a day of prayer. And that would be considered, their holy day of the week, again, referred to as the Sabbath or Shabbat from Friday night on to Saturday night. And then in terms of some holy days and some holidays related to some of the Jewish beliefs and practices here, Yom Kippur would be the most holy day of the Jewish year. And this is a day of atonement or a day of forgiveness, when Jews are forgiven for any misdeeds or any ill thoughts that they might have committed over the past year. But it's also not just a day for spiritual forgiveness, but to offer forgiveness to, your family, your friends, your community, your neighbors, and then also to seek forgiveness from others. And so it's really this idea of atonement and forgiveness. And it comes on, I believe it is the 10th day of Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is a multi-day Jewish celebration, Jewish holiday. It's the Jewish New Year, celebrating the creation of the world and commemorating the creation of the world over a period of many days. But then Yom Kippur comes towards the end of that on the 10th day, really commemorating and marking everything. A couple of other important holidays. You have Passover, which recognizes or recalls when Moses led the Jewish people out of slavery and out of Egypt into freedom. And then you have Hanukkah as well. Hanukkah oftentimes I think is considered by a lot of folks to be the Jewish Christmas. And I think the misconception comes from the fact that, Hanukkah typically takes place right around the Christian holiday of Christmas, so that winter time. And it's also a very festive holiday. There's lights, the menorah and the lighting of the candles, and there's celebrations and there's gift giving. So, it might have some overlap with the Christian holiday of Christmas. But it's in terms of importance, Christmas is very important to the Christian faith tradition. Hanukkah is important to the Jewish faith tradition, but if you were to kind of rank and sort, different holy days and holidays, Hanukkah would be, a little bit lesser in terms of significance and importance as a religious holiday. And then lastly, we just have another little video here about a concept known as kosher. The Jewish faith, just like many faiths, there are some dietary considerations, some dietary restrictions to be aware of. And this is a dietary restriction or consideration known as kosher. So we're going to go ahead and watch this video here, and we're going to learn a little bit about what it means to keep kosher or to have a kosher diet. So let's check that out.
Brought to you by GetKosher.com. Kosher? What is it? What does it mean? What makes it kosher? Kosher in Hebrew means fit, correct, or proper. Kosher is the set of Jewish dietary laws that dictate what kinds of foods can be eaten, how they need to be prepared, and what foods can be eaten together. Kosher goes back thousands of years, and it was written in the Torah. The first part of kosher is the types of animals that can be eaten, and also what parts of the animal can be eaten. It is written in the Torah, any animal that chews the cud and has a cloven hoof is kosher. Cows, sheep, goats, and deer are kosher. Pigs are not kosher. It is forbidden to eat birds of prey and scavenger birds such as bats and vultures. Chicken, duck, geese, turkey are all kosher. Insects and crawling things like worms are not kosher. Fish need to have both fins and scales to be kosher. Scavenger fish are not kosher. Next part is the preparation of the food. It needs to follow strict rules in order to be kosher. Animals must be slaughtered so that there is as little pain as possible. Also, only healthy animals are kosher. Animals are carefully inspected, and if they don't meet strict requirements, they are not kosher. Any processed foods need to be prepared under strict rabbinical supervision. Foods are checked carefully to make sure the right ingredients are used and that it does not contain any small insects. It must be perfect in order to be kosher. The third part of kosher is not mixing meat and milk together. Cheeseburgers are not kosher. All meat and dairy utensils must be kept separate, so there is no accidental mixing of the two. There's a lot more to kosher and understanding it, and we recommend visiting Wikipedia and Chabad website to learn more. This video has been brought to you by GetKosher.com. Order your favorite kosher restaurants and food online.
All right, so there we go. Next time, you're shopping or you're roaming through your pantry, you can start checking your labels, looking for the kosher symbol that you might find on there. And then also, I want to ask you, how many times did that video say the word kosher? Huh? Yeah, go back and watch that. Get back to me and let me know. But that's really it, right? Those are kind of some of the main core beliefs about Judaism. We're going to continue on here. You can check out Christianity and Islam, which are going to be the next two religions we're going to be looking at here. But this video was meant to just give you kind of a broad overview of the Jewish faith and just kind of some of the key origins, the key details related to the origin of the religion, as well as some of the key beliefs, key practices, and key views of the religion. I hope you learned something, and we'll talk to you later. See ya.